Ah, isn't it great when you pop your peas? Yeah, let's talk about plosives. So what is a plosive? Well, a plosive is the sound of your microphone overloading when a burst of air from your mouth hits the microphone way too hard. The letter P, as in Paul, is the most common letter that causes plosives. However, there's a lot of other letters and vocalizations like T and K and ch and F that create a lot of wind that comes out of your mouth that can cause a plosive. When you have a ton of heavy plosives in your audio, it's honestly a key giveaway that you're not an experienced voice actor, because experienced voice actors can hear it in their headphones when they're performing, or they can hear it when they're editing their audio and either fix it with tools, which I'll show you in a minute, or they know how to hear it and go re-record that line, so the plosives are then gone. But sometimes the untrained ear won't hear every plosive. They come in all shapes or sizes. Some are really big and loud and obvious, and some are a little bit more subtle. But this is where your fancy headphones come in, so we can hear every plosive that exists. The sound most plosives make is a deep bass whoosh sound, and sometimes there's distortion in it. Like this example. Poop. That's right, this course has poop jokes, and there's more to come. But before I teach you how to fix plosives, it's even more important to prevent them from happening to begin with. I'm gonna keep it real. I struggle multiple times a week with plosives in that very booth behind me. It's just a matter of getting that mic angle right, and I just have too many P's that hit more often than I like to admit, but there's always an adjustment I can make, and they're gone for the rest of the day. And then sometimes they just come back tomorrow, and it makes me wanna go crazy. But let's talk about prevention. Hands down, the easiest way to prevent plosives is to ensure you're not talking directly into the microphone. Remember all the microphone placement details we covered in the record this script video? Oh, you don't? Oh, that means you skipped and you cheated. Just kidding. I know people are going to click around all over this course, but go watch the video, record this script, because we cover microphone placement in very great detail. But in short, the mic should be slightly off to the side of your mouth at an angle. Now, if you follow the rules in that video and are still having a lot of plosives happening, that's okay. It happens to me, like I said. But try raising the height of the microphone a little bit up and a little bit down. Just make sure it's still aimed towards your mouth area, but you're going to find a sweet spot where your P's stop hitting the mic. The next way to prevent plosives is to use a pop filter. But holy crap, there are so many types of pop filters, it's overwhelming. In my testing, there is no one magical, perfect pop filter that stops every P that has ever been pud. That's a word, right? But in my experience, metal pop filters tend to be a lot more effective than the fabric pop filters, which are usually made of nylon. If you use one of these traditional pop filters, you'll want to place the filter as far away from the front of the microphone as possible while still maintaining that 4 to 5 inch distance from your mouth to the front of the microphone. So your pop filter should be somewhere in between that area. But again, as far away from the microphone as possible. So even if that pop filter is closer to your mouth than the actual mic, that's okay. Why? Because more space between the microphone and the back of the pop filter means more space for your plosives to dissolve through the pop filter and out into space. The closer your filter is to the mic, the less space your plosive has to die. And we must kill every last plosive. In case you didn't notice, some of these pop filters are freaking huge and can make reading your script super difficult. It's this very reason why I don't use these traditional gooseneck pop filters and use one of these ones instead. Now, I'll be honest, these tiny mount on the mic pop filters usually aren't as effective as the large ones that we just covered, for the sole reason I already mentioned. There's not a ton of space between the back of the pop filter and the mic because this pop filter is like sitting on the front of the mic. However, for me, I'm willing to pay the price of potentially more plosives at the convenience of being able to see the script in front of me with both of my eyes and not having to read through one eye and have a giant pop filter covering my other eye and giving me a migraine. It's pros and cons, folks, and it's a personal preference. But what about the windscreen on my 416, Jordan? Should I use it? If you, I just sounded like that Jurassic Park clip. You
didn't say the magic word.
I already covered the pros and cons of the 416 windscreen in the record this script video, so go watch it if you skipped it and you were naughty. Some large diaphragm condensers come with a foam windscreen. Now, a windscreen is literally a hunk of foam that you wrap over the microphone. It is not technically called a pop filter. It's called a windscreen. And I am not a fan of the sound of foam windscreens on large diaphragm condensers. They usually sound a lot more muffled and like there's a towel on it. Like you just got out of the shower and just threw a towel on your microphone and there you go, windscreen. Okay, I'm being a little harsh. It's not that dramatic of a change, but it is fairly noticeable. And if you must use it and you like it, that's okay. You're not going to be losing work because you use a windscreen. But I just wanted to let you know that I usually don't love the sound of them. And data shows that pop filters, not windscreens, but pop filters, which we already covered, are way more effective at stopping plosives than these foam windscreens. You'll find links below this video for pop filters that I and other professionals recommend for voiceover work for both large diaphragm condensers and shotgun microphones below the video. And finally, there is this one weird way that some engineers recommend, but it's usually only for singers and vocalists, not voiceover. And the recommendation is taping a pencil on the center of the mic or literally holding a pencil awkwardly in front of your mouth while you speak to prevent the plosives from happening. This method is actually quite effective at stopping the plosives because the pencil is literally breaking the wind of your plosive into two sections, so it's avoiding hitting the microphone directly and creating the woof sound. However, I find this method to be way too invasive and just really awkward. It's like, oh, I got to put the pencil in front of my mouth when I'm doing the P's and read my script. It's weird. But most importantly, having a pencil taped on the front of your microphone changes the overall tone of the microphone way too much for this to be an effective overall plosive tool. I do not recommend it. So you've done everything you can to prevent plosives from getting into your recording, but there's just still a few that snuck in there and, let's see if we can fix them. But before we dive into it, if you have a ton of plosives in your recording, just re-record it. It's gonna make your life a lot easier. The worst sounding plosives are always the worst looking plosives. And what do I mean by that? You can actually see them here. These are really loud and harsh plosives at the beginnings of these words. There's a significant spike that comes up in the waveform. It's very consistent. There's one, a little bit smaller. I think there's one in there. But this is a really big one. And looking down the line a little bit more, there's one a little more subtle, but there is some energy there. Now let's listen to what they sound like. All right, here's one. Lots of bass energy, right? So that one's really, really distorting the mic. Let's go see and hear what a clean, non-popped P sounds and looks like. So here we have three clean Ps. This one, that one, and this one. Notice how similar they look, and there isn't some giant spike in the middle. There's a little bit of an attack at the beginning. That's just the P getting pronounced. But if there was any bass energy and overloading the mic, you would see a big spike in here. So let's listen to these. That was a very long P, but in general, you hear how it's just mostly air and it's light and fluffy. It's not and overloading the mic. Here's the best method that we can try to fix these plosives. When you have a bigger, stronger plosive like this, you are going to have less of a chance of restoring it. But when they're more subtle, which we'll find some, you have a greater success rate when applying the tool I'm about to show you. Let's listen to how bad the plosives are in this sample.
Professional Paul was asleep, and his pain pills produced piles of pumpkin-shaped poop.
Poop jokes. I got another one stuck in there. Most of these are really heavy plosives, and our mileage will vary, but let's go ahead and try. Let's start with this guy right here. All right, so what the tool is an EQ. You can use any old EQ, but what you have to do is the only thing to engage on it is the high-pass filter. But the high-pass filter needs to be set to 250 hertz. When you have this turned on, it's taking out all of the bass energy of that plosive or that P. You don't need to do anything else with the EQ except this high pass filter. But this is what's really important. You have to zoom in really close and find the exact parts of that P. It usually consists of this thicker energy right here, and obviously the spike is where all of the distortion is happening. And it usually ends when you see the shape of the waveform changing into the rest of the word, which is no longer the P. So you want to highlight just that P section, and then you have your EQ plugin with the 250 hertz ready, and you apply it. Boom. And let's listen back and hear how it sounds.
Paul.
Okay, so we hear that the bass is gone, which is good, but you'll notice that there's kind of like a little bit of a pop or a weird artifact that happens at the end of the P as it starts to go into all.
Paul.
It's like Paul, right? And Unfortunately, that P was just too aggressive and this method didn't work. You can undo and experiment the precision point, like you could try right here,
Paul,
but that's even more apparent. So this one, I'll sneak in a little bit more of the A, right? The A is starting right there on that spike, but let's just try one more time.
Paul,
That's too distracting. I mean, it does sound better than
Paul,
but both options, frankly, suck. And I would just re-record this. All right, so here's another one on the word pain.
pain,
So that one's hitting pretty hard. It's not as aggressive, but that's still pretty heavy. So I'm going to zoom in, highlight. That looks like it ends right about there, and apply the EQ and listen back.
pain,
Oh, that sounds great.
pain,
That's nice and clean. You hear the A little bit sounding thin, but that is sounding much better than,
pain,
right?
pain,
So there isn't a snap or a pop that we were having in that other sample. So this is, I would consider this fixed and good. Let's try one more. Okay, so here's the word pumpkin. No, we're not going to do poop again, but I really want to, but we'll stick with pumpkin. So that one's not as heavy, but it's still pretty heavy. So I'm going to highlight here. Looks like it ends right around there. I'm going to apply the EQ and we're going to listen back.
pump, 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 pump,
That sounds good. That's nice and clean.
pump, pump,
Let's hear the whole word.
pumpkin shaped, pumpkin shaped,
That's good. That's a nice, clean, fixed plosive. So now you can hear what the example is. You don't have a little snap or a whip of a pop that exists after you do that. And like I said, if you do, you can undo, adjust where it's coming in, apply again, and listen back.
pump, pump, pump,
That one has a little bit of a pop in there. So I liked my original choice, which is more this way.
pump, pump, pump,
Yeah, that's smoother. One thing you can also try is applying it multiple times. To make it super easy for you, I've included the code for this preset that I'm using on these plosives in the description below. You just have to highlight all that code, and then you paste it into the plugin like this, and save it as a new preset, and that's your new plosive removal preset. And remember to load that effect to a keyboard shortcut so you can bring it up really quick and not have to do 10 clicks every time you want to fix a plosive. If you want to use your own EQ like in Reaper or Adobe Audition instead that has a high pass filter, that's totally cool. Just make sure that the high pass filter slope setting is set to the highest number possible. Your slope number may vary, but if you can get something as high as 24 or 72 or 96, set it to that, because as you can see here, it will take out as much of the bass below this line as possible. And that's what you want. When it's set to a lower number, it's more gentle and it's not going to be as effective at taking that P out. So just take note of that. Now, there are some paid plugins you can buy that are designed to specifically fix plosives like we were just doing. I have used them quite extensively compared to the free EQ version that we were just doing, and I found that I generally get equal, if not sometimes better results with the free EQ method that we just used versus using these paid plugins on repairing plosives. But I do have them in my arsenal as a backup. You have Isotope's Deplosive tool, which is included in their RX standard package, and then you have the ACUSONUS ERA Plosive Remover. Links to both of those plugins are below this video in case you're interested. And to wrap up what we covered in this video, we want to prevent plosives by using proper, slightly angled microphone technique, and using a good quality pop filter that's positioned correctly. And we can fix some plosives by using a high pass filter EQ set to 250 Hz. And remember, assign it to a keyboard shortcut to make your life easier. And if all else fails, re-record the dang line. That's it. Now all of your poop jokes will be plosive free. Smell you in the next video. You see what I did there? That was pretty bad. That was bad. The Audio Ninja Masterclass. From just a home studio into a pro studio.